seems like there's about 20 musicians we're talking about that have made every single record that everybody owns.
We are rolling right now. Oh my God.
We're rolling.
It's already season 2 of Rock Out with Your Doc Out. How excited are you?
It's crazy.
Yep.
It's crazy. We're doing season 2. We've got all kinds of plans and ideas and cockamamie schemes, and it's very exciting.
I told somebody over the break the best is that I get to see you all the time.
I know, because
Right?
we never...
How is anyone in this town actually friends without doing something together? Not that you don't love people, but to
Right.
get to people or to get them to you is very difficult here.
It is.
It's not like
And
people
I
just
feel
live down the
like
block.
I feel like if you don't have a podcast together, are you really friends?
Are you really an American? I think it's really the big
Or that,
It's-
yeah.
It's time for podcasting. But yeah, you don't. I don't think you do have, and it's not easy to find podcast chemistry, by the way.
No?
No. But this we're doing for season 2. Super exciting.
And we started with
Hired
we started
Gun.
with hired gun.
Hired Gun is the first one of
Yeah.
of this season, of the new season. There are a couple people in this who I was genuinely fans of, but when I went back and looked at the list of names, I'm like, other than the one dude that's named Liberty, which
Yeah.
what a fucking great first name. Like that was
I wish I had seen this movie before I had children, because Liberty would be a great name for to name a person.
Yes. I mean, with True and Mighty, Liberty would have been a great,
Oh, you have great
what a
names
great
for your
brother,
kids,
right? But I
yeah.
just never even thought of Liberty. And this guy is,
If you had another one, Mighty, True, and Liberty,
Yes.
Liberty would be a great addition.
yes, but the absolute opposite of
barren
what we
canon
would be
of child
feeling. We would
names.
not be feeling liberated
No.
with a child at this point. And also super surprised.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Like, what?
How did you make a baby out of that dust I gave you? Anyway.
Wow.
Yep, that was really specific. Liberty is one of the many characters that we encountered in our film.
Yep.
So Hired Gun, I'll just rip through this really quickly. In the seemingly glamorous world of music, the stars are revered and worshipped even by millions of fans. Yet without musicians such as Liberty DeVito, Kenny Aronoff, Jason Hook, and a host of others, many
Rudy
music's-
Sarzo.
Rudy Sarzo,
The best.
Oh fuck, I love Rudy.
I
Sarzo.
want to. There should be a. I'm sorry, I
No.
interrupted you. There should
That's
be
what
a
this
movie
podcast is.
just about Rudy Sarzo.
Rudy
and
Sarzo
his amazing
is
career.
the bass player. He
Of
was originally the
Ozzy.
bass player in Quiet Riot. He then became a member of Ozzy. Oh
He
no,
was
no, no,
in
no, no!
Ozzy
It did go the other
first.
way. You're right. It went the other way.
Yeah, he was an Ozzy with Ozzy first.
Right, but Ozzy hit. But Randy Rhoads was with Quiet Riot.
No.
Then went back. Yeah, Quiet Riot was like London, like one of those metal bands that was around before that whole strip thing happened, and they were kind of not going any. Their documentary is really fascinating, and their singer Kevin Dubrow, he passed on a while ago.
Did he?
Yeah, it didn't go well for him. He went in the whole yeah. He went like Jenny Lane. He went out in a hotel.
Oh.
Yeah, not good. But yes, Randy and Rudy were both in Quiet Riot. Did that happen before? It had to have. It couldn't have happened after because Randy died while in Ozzy. So
Yeah.
it would have to have been
Yeah.
But Rudy Sarzo is still one of the prettiest men.
Oh, and just like the nicest
Alive.
guy.
Yes.
I felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a part of the story. So because he was a session guy and then he played in Whitesnake after that, and I think a couple other bands. He used to do a thing where he was a very pretty man. He would lick his fingers and play and like slap the bass, and then put his hands. You know how women used to do that when they'd fluff up their hair? They'd take both hands. Sarzo used to do that. Everyone in Whitesnake did that. Both him and the other guitar player would jam.
You know,
to
it's
give
funny
it
because there's
heft.
not a lot. There's not a lot of difference between my grandma's hair and the hair of the hair of the '80s metal bands, right?
Oh my God, that's
It's so
100%
true. I
right.
didn't think of it until just now.
Did your grandmother ever call? Because my grandma called it getting her hair set.
Yes.
Get it set.
Yes. And on Fridays, she would do that.
Yeah.
And then she would
Right.
leave her hair like that.
Yeah. Yes, you get it
forever.
set. That's right.
Yeah.
You get it set for the weekend. Right.
Yes.
I'm certain.
Curlers.
Yeah. I'm certain all the boys and poison
A
did
hair
the same
set.
thing. They had to get their hair set.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, see, Bobby, we're gonna have to get our hair set for the weekend. That was my very.
Wow, your grandma voice sounds like Grover.
That was my imitation of CC DeVille.
Or that.
You okay, Hadley? From Lettuce and Cleo. They're good. I listen to them. The other guys in the band wouldn't like it because they think I'm a fag, but I'm not. I'm not a fag, but I like PJ Harvey, so maybe I'm a fag. Those are actual quotes from my interview with CC DeVille.
Wow.
I like John Bryan. I play a D chord. That's it, and I just hold my hand up, and then he went like this with air guitar and just made a D chord and went like that. That's how he felt about his playing. And I told him he was, hey, don't undermine your own work.
No.
You do your own thing. You don't have to be John Bryan, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
CC DeVille.
CC DeVille. Yeah, from Poison. Getting his hair set this weekend for a show. He's got some shows this weekend. The ladies are going to get their hair set. Some of the other women from Aerosmith are going to be there. That's a joke I used to make. I go, God, man, Steven Tyler and Joe Perry look amazing, and then the other ones look like my grandmother's friends. What's Helen doing? She's playing bass in Aerosmith. Oh. Hey, everybody, it's Greg. I am going to be performing at the Helium Comedy Club in Portland the week of the 15th through the 17th of February. And on Friday and Saturday, I'll be recording. I'm going to make a digital download. I'm going to make a digital download, and I'm also going to film it, but not as a special per se. It's just going to be the video documentation of the audio replication of my set. That's what I'm calling the record. And the video part. Video documentation of the audio replication of my set. Yeah. But it's good. I haven't made a record in time. I haven't done a comedy
Memorable.
thing. Is it memorable?
Title.
It is, right?
Rolls off the tongue. Very memorable.
Yeah. How about you? Do you have anything coming up?
No.
Doc McStuffins is always on.
It's always on. Yes.
And it's a big
Thankfully.
deal. Yep.
I have a Clio thing at
What's
the
that
end
thing?
of February in Boston. It's like Geek Bowl or something like that. I don't have details committed to memory.
Yeah.
So that's about all I can give you. And it's like in February around maybe the 23rd. It's a weekend in February.
But we'll post
Towards
it
the
somewhere.
end.
We'll put it on our Twitters, and we'll put it up in the Facebook land, in the Facebook page.
There we go.
Yeah. And the Rainy Monarchs are going to release a record, I think, at some point this year. That's good. We made it 3 years ago, so that is something to look forward to. Yeah, that's what I got for right now.
So we watched this movie.
Yeah, and it's about the life of a person who plays in a band that's not their own, and what that life is kind of like.
Yeah.
We both have friends. You and I both have friends that play in bands for a living. We know people also that play in the studio for a living. I mean, I don't even know. Do they still have session musicians?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think most working musicians are session and touring musicians.
Right.
Right.
But is there less of a call for it now just because of the...
No, I think there's more of a call for
Really?
it now. I think so.
Yeah.
Or maybe not more. I think it hasn't changed.
Right.
I think it hasn't changed.
Right. And so the movie sort of takes on what it's like to do it touring, what it's like to write songs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was part of it too, are people that contribute or work or write songs, or sometimes they write something that actually is the song, but they don't get the credit for writing it. Some people come in and do a session. I mean, it's a very ambiguous world. And so they cover, there's maybe like 7 or 8 people that are the focus of this documentary, and maybe 4 really good stories.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you, because also, and I said to you beforehand, you're kind of a hired gun. Right?
I mean, I'm a hired gun. Well, actually, I did do a hired gun thing when I did the Miley Cyrus tour. I did. backup vocals and stuff like that for her. And everyone in the band was a hired gun, someone who makes a living playing with lots of different people. So that was kind of like my only
But
thing like that I ever did.
But you've written songs with people. That's a hired gun thing, right?
But you don't get paid for that. And I'm definitely not a session person. I'm not a session singer.
But what about like the Butch Walkers of the world? Do they get paid, or does that make him not a hired gun? Then he's a... Like, what's the difference? Like, what are the...
I think there's a different... I mean, they did actually go into this a little bit.
Yeah.
The person who's like the touring musician,
right.
Which, by the way, you have to... And this was covered too, that you have to be like an incredible and versatile musician. Like the skill set that a touring and session musician has is like pretty unique. In that you just have to be able to learn shit really fast. You have to like adapt to different styles, different sounds. You have to have access to, if you're a guitarist, you have to have, an entire.
It's insane to me. The friends of mine that I know have done it or have auditioned, and they'll say, "Yeah, I had to go home and I got to learn and Mike, and where they'll go, yeah, man, I had to go home. I learned like 15 songs last night. I'm like, fuck, I'm still working on Black Dog from high school. How is that possible? And not only that, but I have to play it as it has to sound like the dude I'm replacing for the most part.
It's really hard. It's not, you have to be the kind of person who's willing to just like sit at home and learn like an entire, 90-minute set. I could never do that. I could never just like sit around and do that. It's so
Would you
boring.
even want to?
No.
Right.
No.
So that's my thing. So there's one quote. There's one. I wanted to play a clip, because Rob Zombie at the beginning he describes, just we were talking about what it is you have to have to
was given this opportunity by these guys.
To do this job.
Now you're in it, dude. You signed to be in this thing. You can't take that lightly.
This is
big responsibility now. Everybody's got their role in this band, and nobody wants to be the weak link. That's why that band is still around.
Finding the right person for your band is almost impossible because you're looking for, to me, three things. You got to find somebody who is an excellent musician, which that's the easiest thing to find. There's a million excellent musicians. Then you get to find somebody who's really cool, who can stand on stage in front of 15, 100,000 people and be amazing. Then it whittles it down to a smaller group. And then you got to find somebody you can stand to be around 24/7 because you live with them day in and day out. Then it shrinks down to about, here's the three people in the music industry I can actually stand to be around. So no, that is the trick.
You're going to be traveling with these guys for the next year.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing worse than being in a band with someone who sucks.
Right. And you guys have hired, so Cleo's had people play with them, correct? Or were they always
No, it's always been like a member of the
right?
band. Like when Stacy left Cleo to go do Veruca Salt,
right.
We got Tom Polchi to play drums.
Right.
And he became another member of the band.
Right.
And in fact, when we did dates last year, when we did all 3 albums,
right.
Stacy performed on the 2 albums that he did on the first 2 nights. And then Tom came back and did hit. So he was a member of the band.
Right.
And even like our crew was not really revolving. Like we had the same people all the time, which kind of reflects my worldview anyway. Like I'm terrible with change. Like the story about Liberty DeVito, who was Billy Joel's drummer, who was with him from like the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then Billy Joel just like shit canned him. And I cannot identify with that. It's like it would be hard to imagine what a person, aside from like, I can't imagine someone offending me in a way that would get them kicked out of the band.
There's a whole story here. Like to me, I was like, we could just do a thing called Billy Joel's a douche canoe.
Oh my God.
First off,
right?
There's a handful of songs of his that I think, oh, that's a pretty good jam, right? And then there's songs of his that I hate so much it ruins it for all songs written by anyone from New Jersey. Like he makes me furious. And what's bothersome to me is I always thought this guy seems like kind of a douche. And then this sort of bears that out. Now, I'm sure he has his struggles. Maybe he's a nice guy. Maybe those guys were hard to be around. But even in this, it's just, I have a little piece I'll play later. But yeah, I think that's a guy who's so controlled by fear, nobody's safe. And I think sometimes in these bands, it's like family, where
Right.
somebody gets to play the role of dad and somebody else gets to play the role of the kids, even though we're all adults. And maybe if I'd have been there, I would have been able to say, get out now, get out now, get out now. This is the part in the family where dad goes bad.
Well, that's an interesting thing that you just said, because even if you were to say get out now, to see with a hired gun, you have to put up with all manner of indignities. You get to be treated. I mean, there was an interview with what's his face from Filter.
Oh yeah, we'll get to him, Richard Patrick.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to him. But let's talk about Billy Joel for a minute. Let's talk about that. So the basic, there's a couple stories that they run all the way through, and one of them is the fact that Billy Joel had basically the same band for a large part of his career, and most of his, like, I would say, albums, the ones where the whole album was a thing, as opposed to singles and shit down the line. And some of the guys and some of the songs that like they talk about the one song that's got the drum part at the beginning but the one where he turns it into, Billy Joel had written it as kind of a reggae song. Only the Good Die Young. Right.
Yeah.
And the guy turned it around at the beginning with the little drum part.
Yeah.
And the drummer. And basically wrote the song. Like, that's that thing you forget sometimes. Like, that one part that someone adds to your song is why people buy the record.
The only thing in that story that gave me some solace, and I made it up in my head because I hope so badly that it's true, is that he got points for, like, he got co-writer credit, like ASCAP or BMI for, contributing to those songs, because it's possible.
Do you think he did?
I don't know. I didn't have time to go back and do an all music search to see who the co-writers were on those early Billy Joel songs. But if Liberty DeVito did not get co-writer credits on those songs that he contributed to, then that would mean that once he was done, he was done. So he went from making, like, for however 10, 15 years, being on the road, constantly making a certain level of money, to literally making nothing.
Well, Rick, his producer, is going to look up if Liberty DeVito has written any songs, while I see if we have that clip.
When we got into the studio with Billy, we had this interesting chemistry that, just kind of clicked. It was kind of cool. We were a very easy band to play with. Nobody ever went in there with a I'll show you attitude. It was always about framing the song, framing Billy. We were very open-minded as to how we would do it. Certainly Lib and Doug's contribution, is what stood out in those records, because frequently Billy would record in a stripped-down way and would even do a lot of the basic tracks with just bass and drums.
And he turned it around. It was like boom, cha-dunk, boom, boom, cha-dunk, boom. So and it gave it more of a flow. Don't go changing. Try and please me. And it flowed along a lot better.
Yeah.
So Liberty DeVito did not get any songwriter credit on those Billy Joel songs.
No.
And that makes me just, like, so sad.
Right. I know. You actually genuinely look sad, like the look on your face. I know.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't even believe how unfair that is. That you spend your whole life with this one artist, and, work song, they bring their, like, song into the room, and then the whole band helps you work it out and arrange it. And then you just don't feel like they deserve even 5% cut of the song.
Right.
Like nothing.
Nothing. It's kind of, I mean, you hear those stories all the time, and I'm weirded out by that. And when the Van Halen book came out earlier this year, the manager wrote a book about them and cleared up and said the first record on, they fired Michael Anthony and rehired him as just the bass player. It says all songs by Van Halen, but Michael Anthony is not a member of Van Halen. So all those backing vocals, all those high-pitched backing vocals, and it was always rumored that Eddie did all the bass parts or whatever. But, when you're a kid and you go to see them, and it was the whole gang. You know, he was just as much a part of your wanting to go see them thing, and just the idea that like that guy has to stay in Sammy Hagar's band, like that seems like a punishment beyond anything human, that he has to play in Sammy Hagar's band now just so he can make money. But Sammy Hagar is the kind of guy who probably gave him a piece of his tequila company.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. He tried to get
Something.
He tried to get the Van Halens involved in the tequila
Right.
thing, and they were like, no, we don't want to be a part of your stupid. Oh, wow.
Because
That
one
was
of the
dumb.
things about being an artist is that, you know, you write these songs and you rely on royalties to get you through while you're, you know, what we all call mailbox money, to get you through while you're not touring in between albums, so that you can take a year to like stay home and write the next record or write the next script or write whatever it
Yep.
is. And and we also, you know, get to, you know, if you're lucky enough to be in like a union, you can have like health benefits and stuff. The
But if you're a
people who
Billy
do
Joel,
this
like,
stuff,
don't you just go back and go, look, I make, you know, there are songs that like he could attach them to one song that would pay them off for a lifetime, right? Like
yeah.
I mean, his catalog is going to be sold and resold. Like but people are fucking weird about money. And I do get sometimes, like, I remember, I was talking to somebody about Rick Ocasek's apparently, like, you know, he is the Cars.
Yeah.
And, although great songs are sung by Ben Orr, but, he was really like you know, really very militant about his getting the songwriting credit, and even was like, you know, I'm dragging, he sort of, the drummer, Tom Robinson, he's like, you know, I'm dragging that guy around. He's lucky he has a job. And I think some guys do feel that way. That's like, look, man, you still get to go on tour. You know, what else would
Yeah.
you be doing? I mean, that's a really bad way to look at other human beings that you create with. But I do think some guys feel like, if not for me, you wouldn't have any of this. Maybe. I don't know. Do you? I don't know.
I can't relate to that
No, of
way
course
of
not.
doing things. It's like, to me, it's like if something is a huge hit and everyone's going to get rich, then like you're not going to miss the 5% that you give to some. You're never gonna regret erring on the side of generosity.
Right. All the U2 guys split the money all 4 ways.
Do they?
Mm-hmm.
And so did
Still,
and
and
so
always.
did
And they've never not been U2. They've never done anything other than
so
U2.
did Nirvana, apparently.
Right.
They, like, he wrote every single one of those songs, but he brought them to the rehearsal space. They worked them out in the room, and they all, I believe, split the publishing.
But don't you think, like, I guess, I mean, I don't know, songwriting's so fucking hard that maybe just because you put a drum part down, but sometimes the drum part's like the thing that you go, well, that's kind of the hook. There's the unspoken, you know, there's the flip, flap, 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 you know, the beginning of the Nirvana song or
Yeah.
whatever, those things.
Huge
that are
hook.
like,
It's
yeah,
like
huge
that
hook.
that drum fill says, like, holy fuck, that's the song, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can't really quantify how much people bring to the process in the room, but it is true that so many of the songs that you know and love would not be the same without the musicians who played on them.
Some people don't exist without their bands.
Right.
I mean, I hate to say this because it's hard to say, but like without the Replacements, Paul Westerberg is just not Paul Westerberg. He's just not.
Yeah.
There's an alchemy with, and especially the worst, like the lesser players supposedly at the beginning of the career made it so much more poignant. And it was like there's almost like an anti-writing in the writing, you know, because you know how things can be overwritten and overthought and thought out and too produced, and
Yeah.
you know, sometimes that works, but there's something about, man, we can barely play the song that we wrote.
Yeah.
We can barely play it. We're not good enough to almost play the song we wrote, but isn't it fucking magnificent? That seems to be true more often than, you know, a super finessed, we got this very best guys to make a thing. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I mean, some bands get great together, like Petty's band, right?
Yep.
Um,
But again, not that those songs would not be the same without those dudes.
right.
There are artists out there that, like, some of the artists that they went through in this movie, like your Mandy Moores, your Hillary Duffs, it doesn't matter.
No.
And even to an extent, Pink, it's like all those songs like exist on the recordings, and then the guys are brought, even if it's the same people in the band. And, I know Katy Perry's had the same exact band for a million years.
Right.
Pink has had the same, but it's like those guys are like learning the shit that happened in the studio, and their task is to replicate it. So really, like, anyone could do that. But at the same time, it goes back to, but who do you want to spend every waking moment with on the road? So these people have to be cool.
Right. That's another thing. And then it also has to look cool.
It has to look cool. Well, does it?
I mean,
I think it's really
I
interesting.
guess if you're in Rob Zombie's band, yes. I
Yes,
suppose.
like you can't, right.
But
You can't look like a dentist if you're in Rob Zombie's band.
and he did go on later on to say, and the weird thing is you sometimes pick the guy who can't play as well because he's the better hang, or the band actually
for
does
sure.
work with the person who's actually not that cool looking, but
yeah.
there's a vibe. He goes, it's some stuff is just sort of indescribable, and whatever alchemy, like it all comes together.
Yeah.
And it's a strange thing because you can mostly always tell, like, there's a thing that a group of guys that are together have, like when a band is together, that they have that when there's a couple session guys up there, you can just tell, you can just feel it, even though you're right. Well, these are the exact same songs, but this doesn't swing the same way or have the same, I don't know, emotional appeal or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I was obsessed with, and also I was really disheartened early on when I found out people didn't play on their records. That really messed me up.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
I took it hard the second time I saw Van Halen in a row, and David Lee Roth said the same things. I was like, my mind is blown.
I never even thought about it when and I think they talked about this a little bit in the movie, that like I never thought about who was playing in the band. I never cared. I think most people are like me when I was growing up. It's like most people don't give a shit about like who's in the band. Like if it's the same people who played in the band as played on the record as plays on tour. I don't think people give that much thought.
I don't think it was probably until kind of the era that I grew up in, a little bit before you, when like, oh, Jimmy Page is a guy, and that's what he sounds like, and that's Led Zeppelin's guitar. Like, and by the way, John Bonham, and the musicianship became a topic of your band discussion. Like, suddenly the Beatles, and people talked a little bit about the Stones, but bands were just bands, and they played, and people didn't give a shit. And then, right, but then when those 70s bands came along, and people started to really listen because stereos got better, fidelity got better, rock and roll playing became more legit. You could start to hear stuff, and then all of a sudden it was like, if you didn't play, you were a fucking pussy almost.
Right. Yeah.
It was like, if you couldn't play on your record, and I remember there was always that, like, Dave Davies didn't really play the lead on You Really Got Me. It was actually Jimmy Page, and Dave Davies
was that
really,
true?
Oh, he really freaked out. He's like, I did play it. People got really, there was like for a while it was really important that you were legit on a rock record.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like it was a big deal. And then I found out, like, even though some of those things I thought were legit, and they're like, like a lot of the records in the 70s over here in Hollywood, Gilby Clark's on half the great records. I'm like, Gilby Clark, the guy that replaced Izzy in Guns N' Roses. Yeah.
Right.
He's like one of the best players in town, and they used to bring him in. He could bang out shit really quickly. Supposedly he played all the music on the Runaways records. I really don't want that to be true. I really don't want that to be true. But he was a Kim Fowley guy.
Well, that
I
would
want
make
Lita
sense.
Ford to have played it. I want Joan to have played on there.
And sometimes it's best to not know.
Right, it is.
To like just suspend disbelief.
And I was saying to Rick earlier, and I'm sure you've had this, there's times where I've made records like with Mike and before, where I'm in the studio and I go, fuck, someone else play this. Can we just get this done? I don't care.
Yeah.
Somebody else play it. I don't care. I don't care. It's an all instrumental record. Somebody will think I did something. Like there are times where you're trying to get a part and you wrote the part and you're proud of the part. Now you fucking hate the part and you're like, then I can't do it at the same time as everyone else. Just take it.
Yeah.
You're like, I wrote it. I came up with it. I'll have to live with that.
Yeah.
it's hard. Playing in the studio is incredibly hard.
It's really hard. I've been singing since I was in the studio since I was like 18 years old. It's still one of the hardest things I have to do for work.
Right.
Like it still does not come naturally for
Really?
me to sing in the studio.
Yeah.
No.
And do you think so? There were a couple of other really good stories in here. There was the one that was sort of about two hitmen, which was when Rudy Sarzo got into Ozzy's band.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Blizzard of Oz, which is what it was called, when the Blizzard of Oz
You
came
say
together,
that's like the first time you've ever said that, which I know is not true.
No, the Blizzard of Oz. It's been a while since I've said the Blizzard of Oz.
Right.
Because we just started calling him Ozzy. We just didn't do the Blizzard of Oz. But people forget, Ozzy was in Black Sabbath. The Black Sabbath had fallen apart.
Yeah.
There was a famous tour where Van Halen opened for them and people would leave right after. Van Halen just blew him off the stage. And so he wasn't kind of in the game really. And so nobody saw that record coming and nobody saw Randy Rhoads coming. And Randy Rhoads was now going to be in the shadow of Eddie Van Halen, who was the reigning guitar king.
Yeah.
And here came this darker, weirder, whole other guy, who sort of, he didn't displace Eddie Van Halen. He just went, well, I'm also here. And it was a big deal. And that band was huge.
Yeah.
And cool and contemporary for a band that had, from the ashes of an older, plodding, blues band in a way. And then Randy Rhoads died suddenly in an airplane crash.
Which it's still just like unreal that happened.
Right. And that
it was the stupidest thing. Their bus driver.
Right.
It was just like they were buzzing the tour bus.
They're buzzing the tour bus.
How do you do?
Like they died doing, like it'd be the thing if you go, hey, by the way, don't buzz the bus with the plane. You'll die. That's a stupid thing to do. Like,
don't buzz anything.
Like there's a lot of things to take
airplane.
risks on or in.
An airplane's not one of them.
No.
Crazy.
And so that turned out the way it did.
Yeah.
And then oddly, and we all remember that, like it was they decided to keep the tour going because they didn't think Ozzy would make it if they took him home. And so there was a local band in San Francisco called Ranger. And they used to fill in at the Stone when a band wouldn't show up. Like that's who they were. And they had two guitar players that were really good. And one of them, his name was Brad Gillis. And Brad Gillis was a guy who, so Eddie Van Halen does the tapping trick. And what you do is you do a pull off with your left hand and then you tap with your finger on the right an octave down, right? So what he would do is that he would use all four fingers on both hands and pull off with, so he did like Eddie Van Halen times 4. He had this weird trick where it sounded like it sounded like a weasel running over a train. Like it was just this weird other guitar trick. And that was what was cool about him. But he was in this sort of no-name band that kind of played Journey music. And they threw him in Ozzy. And he had to learn all those songs in 2 nights or something.
Yeah.
And he also looks like they pulled him off a football field. He was like a big dude with curly hair. They had to pull out of a Trans Am. And he had to come in and be Randy Rhoads for the rest of the tour with people fucking yelling and
like,
making,
we hate you, Randy Rhoads forever.
Yeah. And it was good. He was great. There's a great live concert of that tour.
And that was one of the things that this movie did right, is that they like drew the parallel between that guy and like Jason Newsted, who replaced
Cliff Burton
in Metallica.
Right.
And how they like, I really appreciated how they tied those two stories together and how hard that must have been or how hard that was for both guys. Jason was, talking about that he really doesn't. He just kind of gave a shout out to anybody who has to like replace the unreplaceable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that he just played harder and,
and just
also,
did not.
And both these guys had enormous respect for the people that they were replacing, right? Like
yes.
They both like paid homage, and it was sort of hard not to. And in that world, in that metal world, people are unrelenting, and that must have been. And I don't have the stamina. I don't like people just not even paying attention, like just not paying attention to me, let alone being confrontational. I can't imagine how hard that would be to get up there and it's such a fucking, you can't like guitar, musicianship, but like guitar is such an exact thing to like, to concentrate while somebody's telling you you suck.
Yeah.
And you should die. And you're fucking trying to do your 5-finger hammer on. In a suit, in an outfit that they made for you, like they just buy you a Ferrari suit that's too tight around your boobs area because you're just a dude and not a little girl like Randy Rhoads. Literally, Randy Rhoads was doll clothes. Like that's how little that guy was. Doll clothes. Yeah, polka dots and doll clothes. Polka dots and doll clothes. Yeah, and then Rudy Sarzo is still playing and he was cool, and he had a come to Jesus moment early in his life, right? And said, all I want to do is play music. God, just let me play music. And that's what he's done pretty much ever since. They quite right. It's been together back and forth, and then he's done other gigs. Whitesnake, as I mentioned.
Yes,
he was a Prell model. If anyone remembers Prell for a while,
I do. That was the shampoo that came in the green squeeze bottle.
That's right. Yeah.
Or it was green shampoo that came in a clear squeeze bottle. I should say.
I remember which was which. I think you're right.
I do.
Number 2 is second. I think it was
my mom only for some reason would get Johnson & Johnson's baby shampoo and Ivory soap and stuff like that. So anytime I got a chance to use any kind of like
exotic, right?
Amazing, like
those are real working men. Those
stuff,
are real working
stuff
men
with smelly
staple.
stuff in it.
Yeah.
I'd just go crazy.
What your mom got was factory soaps for people that work at factories who have to really clean themselves. Like
she was like serious about getting clean.
Line.
Like there's gonna be no enjoyment to your cleanliness.
No, this soap has hard edges.
Yeah.
Right? If you turn the bar on you, you will scrape yourself. That's what that feels like.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember that. I remember that too. Like we didn't have any of the. We did too. Johnson & Johnson and Ivory. That was it.
And also Scott tissue for toilet paper. Just like everything about getting clean is like it's not for pleasure. It's like to be taken seriously.
I used to talk about my mom how my parents did well, but my mom was not into comfort in any way, or she had taste, but she didn't like anything plush. Anything that says I'm going to relax here for a minute. That's not. We had a lot of wicker.
Yeah. Oh, right.
We had a lot of straight back chairs.
Oh, yeah.
You know, my mom would brag about buying her underwear at the 5 and dime.
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
wow, we have the same mom.
Isn't that weird? Yeah, my mom was really like just no frills.
But then throw in some Jesus too.
My mom
throw
had
in
no
some
Jesus.
Catholicism.
My mom was done with the church.
Oh, okay.
She got my father had his first marriage annulled, and the Catholic Church wouldn't let my mom get married to him.
No,
because he'd had an annulment, and so she became an obstinate Episcopalian. I was baptized in Grace Cathedral up in San Francisco, and then none of us set foot in a church again.
Wow.
I had to know that was it. My mom would cry a lot at Christmas time, unexplained, and we never talked about religion or the church, other than going to weddings and stuff. So no religion. I had no religion growing up, which is a strange thing, I think.
Yeah.
You know, now it's more common that people don't, or they have parents that have a spiritual idea, or you know, Buddha. I mean, if somebody had brought up Buddhism in our house, it would have just been odd. Like,
I wouldn't have even known what that was.
No.
I didn't meet a Jew until I was in college.
A lot of Jews in San Francisco.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of Jews. Right?
Not in Boston, though.
Star of David
especially
was a
not
big
in
deal.
Dorchester.
Did you? I fucking love it when you do that. Did you see? I know we're jumping off, but did you see? Call Me Your Name. Call Me by Your Name.
I watched it peripherally. Zoe started watching it, and I was about to sit down and watch it with her.
Yeah.
And because screeners.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm so uncomfortable right now. I can't. And so I was doing the dishes and laundry and peeking in every once in a while, but
you couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
What was it you didn't like about it?
I don't know, the inappropriate adult man minor child kissing, and
that's so interesting.
And It made me, and it had, I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that it was two men. I think it was just, I don't think you could have made the movie if it was a man and a woman.
Oh, they make that movie all the time. They're called Woody Allen movies, but yes.
But are they ever, 16 years old and, like an adult
I feel like
man and or is that just implied that it's a younger woman? I mean, this was like a minor an adult.
The TV show Pretty Little Liars, there's a teacher having an affair with dates one of the kids at the school.
I would not like that either.
Yeah. It never occurred to me, and I think only because it was boys for some reason, and they both seem like he's 17 going on 18. I never thought about it. It never even occurred to me. I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. I couldn't get over how accurately they had rated my wardrobe. I have a photo of me in Europe. I'm wearing gigantic khaki pants. I didn't have a Star of David though. That was what I was reminded of. But everybody wore Star of David back then. Like the art direction was so specifically good.
Yeah.
That even the subtleties of like people's weave belts and the China and all the like everything they used it, like I was like, man, this really is like. And
did you like it? Did you like them? I thought you had a similar experience.
My experience was that my daughter was so in love with it and so emotionally taken by it that I was just concerned. I was doing that work, and also there were moments, sexual moments, that I went, well, I'm glad Amira this is her, because my purview has never been sex with the girls. So when Mighty said, why'd that boy put a bathing suit on his head? I'm like, go ahead, Mira. Go ahead. Are you gonna say pheromones, or I'm gonna go there? Yeah, okay. Because he put the bathing suit on and then took a whiff. Yeah, and then fucked a peach later. So, but I did. Here's what I did like about it. I'm so concerned about True's generation because I'm a little bit. You've got kids further along, Zoe's further along, so you've already sort of encountered romance and how you feel about that kind of stuff. And this was such a non-technology based romance of pining for and forbidden, and they took time, and it was not gonna. They were realistic about how it ended. There was something nice about the way the relationship played out that made me go, oh, I'm glad True's responding to this, because she likes longing and she understands loss and meaningful relationships. So there was something about it that I felt good about in a way. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Because I don't know, when you ask kids, do they date? They're like, well, that's the stupidest thing you've ever said. What other question do you have? I don't have any more questions. Make sure if you marry a studio musician, he plays in a good band. But not one of the Billy Joel guys. Make sure he doesn't get too attached to it. Make sure he doesn't live with it, or the guy who was so thrown by being out of the band that he killed himself, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's not Billy Joel's fault
at all.
But I still can't get over the idea that, that he found the guys who had been with him forever to be so expendable. I can see like going into the studio using different people. I mean, people do that all the time, but
in my stupid, very sort of like, because I've never had the opportunity to be it, but in my mind, if I'm Billy Joel, I get to be Santa Claus all the time. I can fire guys from the band because I want to move on, but I do it lovingly, and I make sure that they're taken care of because I can. Like, if you could, but he lost all of his money because he's a fucking idiot. But if you could treat people super well, if you could, especially something like, look, what if I put your name on a couple of the records, and that way there's it's like a pension plan, or it's like he's made so many hits.
I know,
right? But
I don't know. I feel like that was one of the things also that was confusing about this movie, is that they were covering, it wasn't just Sidemen. it like there's a delineation that should be made between like side guys and guys that have been in your band forever, like or let's see, like Guns for Hire wouldn't be for like Kenny Aronoff, classic Gun for Hire. Like he is a drummer who will get called, like he never really joins a band. I mean, sometimes he does, but like he will join your tour, he will play on your record, but he's basically like making the rounds of the highest bidder. And he's like hugely sought after drummer.
But what's so interesting about him and his story, and what I really liked about him, because you know he's been around forever, and it's so funny because he looks so much cooler now than when he did have hair, because he didn't have hair, so he did sort of a Ben Franklin thing for a while, and now he doesn't have hair, and it just whatever that move is makes him look super cool. Whereas before you went, oh, you're the guy that has everything you should have to rock. Except the hair. You so don't have hair.
Yeah.
And you're wearing it. Like, get rid of all of it. But he was a guy who I think he was so driven that he was a survivor, right? He came out with
John
Cougar's
Cougar
band.
Mellencamp.
He hadn't played long enough.
Johnny Cougar back then.
That's Johnny Cougar.
Yep.
That's right. Another, I don't know. Maybe he's a nice guy. He seems like he might be not a douche canoe too. Is he?
Me? I don't know.
He doesn't.
It's
seem
hard
like
to say.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I know Bryan Adams is nice. I don't know why he's in that conversation, but I
well, because he's from that same period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
I mean, Summer of '69 and Jack and Diane. Like, how did two guys with like that same kind of like working class,
right,
like corn-fed, all American, drive-in
I'll
songs?
tell you how one of them did it. Canadian.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the likable one.
Mm.
Ryan Adams, Canadian.
Right.
Yeah. Cuts Like a Knife.
Oh, man.
He had some great songs.
So good.
He had some great songs.
Oh,
And
so good.
So did I like Scarecrow by John Cougar Mellencamp. Although he was better than that, but Kenny Aronoff got fired. Well, they were like, look, you're not going to play on the record. You're not good enough.
That's so funny, right? I love
and
that
he
story.
did I'm going to stay and watch and learn how to do it. I'm going to be your drummer. So his approach to all of it is, I don't need anybody. I understand you may not need me. I'm going to make you need me.
Yeah.
But I'm going to know enough that I don't need anything from you. I will sleep on your couch.
Mm-hmm.
So he never came at it as, let's all be in a band together.
Right.
It's that weird thing of like, I've been having this conversation a lot with people where it's like, I hate the thing. It's called show business, but it is called show business.
Right.
And we all feel like friends because we make art, but it's all commerce, and people aren't nice, and you need to know what you're doing next and not depend on the friendships of people, because sometimes even your friends have to let you go.
Yeah.
That's the way your life's going. And I feel like some of these guys get attached, and maybe they should have left the Billy Joel band earlier because they went, look, I can't just know Billy Joel my whole life. I gotta do some other things. On the other hand, you're playing fucking Madison Square Garden. What day is the quitting day? Right? You stay in that, right? You don't go get in Filter.
There was some of this that made me so sad.
Yeah.
Some of this that made me so sad. Yeah. At the same time, I think what you're saying is right, that it's like, this is a business. And, I mean, the sort of gig economy has become a meme at this point. Like, this is what people are just hustling for work all the time now, going from job to job to job.
Right.
And it's become kind of like the new American way of doing things.
Right.
But for these guys, it's always been this way, like hustle, hustle, hustle. And going back to, the one problem that I had with this movie is that like it was traveling two parallel lanes and conflating them, because there's a big difference between like the guys who play in, Springsteen's band. Like, those are not hired guns. Like, I mean, some people maybe, but like, even though it's Springsteen, it's like all guys that have been with him forever. Like, that's his band. And they talked about a lot of that. Like with some guys, it's like this is their core band, but they said that they were hired guns, but they're not.
Right.
And then there were some like real hired guns, like
Yes.
like Kenny or why was David Foster in that?
I think because he
in that-
started as a session musician and then went.
And became a producer.
Yeah, he said he goes, I realized it was all the money was on the other side of the board.
And like why
Producing, he
was
goes, why couldn't I produce something? He goes, I was playing and going, I'm watching this guy going, it's not that hard, and I'm a musician. This guy's not a musician that's producing. Why don't I get on the other side and see what I know? I mean, it was smart. I mean, he, I don't know that I love David Foster's music or him. Great sweaters. He looked like he looks like exactly where he should be in a room full of Grammys and candles. Like that's where he looks like that guy, right?
Yeah.
He's got like in the tradition of Marvin Hamlish and all those other, Burt Bacharach kind of like I do a little bit of it all, kind of guys.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that can just play bass is in trouble.
Could be.
Yeah.
Except for wait, who are some of the
I mean, Jason Newsted's had a pretty good run at it.
Yeah, he's not a hired gun. He's a part of the band. He may not write this. Well, probably by now
when he
like
joins,
writes
he
the
becomes
songs.
a part of the band.
Right.
He's not right. He doesn't go out and play with Mandy Moore.
Right.
Right.
Right. But even Mandy Moore guys started. Did he start Five Finger Death Punch or did he join it and now he's in it?
And I thought that was balls because he moved. Alice Cooper hasn't toured.
Right.
He hasn't made a record I don't think he's made a big record. Maybe he's continued to make records, but he hasn't had a hit in a long time. And had a career longer than most people have. And he seems like a very nice person.
Yeah.
And he always gets great guys. So many great musicians have come from his touring bands.
Mm-hmm.
Then this guy was in that band. The opposite of the guy in Billy Joel.
Mm-hmm.
He had a paying gig that he could have kept. Alice loved him, and he wanted to go try. He plays this type of music, a type of metal that this band played, and he was a great contribution to the band. It was the right fit.
Yeah.
And they've done I don't know the Five Finger Death Punch. I know I've heard them.
Yeah.
And I've heard of them, and that kind of music I can listen to for about 4 songs, and then I'm good. I feel full.
Metal.
But that kind of metal.
What kind of metal is that?
Like Avenged Sevenfold, like it's got a little bit of its foot in the 70s, but it's also thrash.
Right. Double kick.
That kind of like
double kick drum.
Yeah. And it's just for me. It's after a while. It is just.
It's a little jittery.
It's tonnage.
It's tonnage.
Yeah, like I can do it if I go see it because that's kind of a thrill. It's all tonnage. But when you're in the car, you're like, it's just too many. That's too much. It's all too much. It's too dense. Too heavy.
Okay.
I need to break it up. When am I going to cry? That's what I want to know. When's the sad part?
When do the feelings
When does
come?
it get real pretty? Yeah. When do you break it down a little bit?
Yeah.
And
the answer is never. With Five Finger Death Punch.
Right. Or they just didn't recognize it because it's not your world. That is their sad song.
Yeah, because to some people, it's all emotion.
Yes.
It's just not the emotion that we like.
And it looked like he wanted, just a quick footage of the band, it's like he wanted that gang experience. A lot of guys, I mean, that's part of my I was watching Peaky Blinders the other night. Have you watched it?
I haven't. I feel like I'm not part of, I feel like I'm missing out that I haven't.
Well, here's a great thing. It's going to be around forever. You can watch it whenever you feel like it. That's how I feel about Game of Thrones. I haven't I just haven't yet.
Wait, you haven't watched Game of Thrones?
No, we didn't get in. Amir, there's some things because when you're in a relationship.
Right. You have to decide together.
Yeah. Or you're doing it by yourself, which is fine. But we started it, we quit it, and I never went back. So I will.
It's a big commitment because now it's like 6 seasons.
And I just like just aesthetically, I'm going to want to dress more like the guys in Peaky Blinders. And I went, but I watched.
You won't have that same problem with Game of Thrones.
No. I don't. I wouldn't mind having a broadsword, but I'm not really sure what I'd do with it. But I do like the idea of it. But the thing I loved about what I was remembering when I was watching Peaky Blinders is it's about a gang in England during the Industrial Revolution.
Not a gang of metal musicians.
No, but
a
they
gang
could be.
of.
I mean, they could be, and they're thick as thieves. They're 3 of them are brothers. They're Irish gypsies, but they are a fucking gang, and they are I'm like that's what I've always wanted to be in. Is like I'm like why didn't I just go into crime?
Right.
I just want to be in a crime like in The Sopranos.
I don't think you have what it takes to be into crime.
No, I don't have any good ideas for crime. I don't have any good crimes. I don't have any good crimes. I'm not a great fighter, and I wouldn't be a great driver. So I'm not really sure what my part would be, but I do love the idea of it. And so for a band, for me, part of it was never about musicianship, that's for sure. But I love the idea of being in a gang. I love a thing that you experience as a group. And I think the guy that joins Five Finger Death Punch is like, I want that experience. Cause none of the bands I started, and they showed all these different pictures of them with different groups of people. And you were like, oh, those look like bands. They could have been bands, but they weren't bands. Having that experience is, as you know, you still do it. You're still in a gang.
Kind of.
It's a gang.
It's a gang.
Yeah. I mean, in that you guys have had experiences together that only the five of you or something, whatever.
That's true.
Grouping of it.
And I could for that reason, I could never be what is described in this movie. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
I don't have that thing that allows me to switch gears like that and just like get to know new people, form like intimate bonds. Because to me, that's what it's all about. Like when being on stage and playing music together is just, I mean, in a perfect world, it's an intimate experience, and for the same reason I could also never be like a solo artist because I can't take those hits on my own. At least when you're criticized, get terrible reviews and stuff like that, it's a shared pain. Right. But like when you're a solo artist, it's like it's all on you.
I don't know why people want to go solo. I'm always surprised. I mean, I suppose there's some freedom. I mean, if you're Sting and you want to make that instead of the Police, like if that's what you have in you and you have that in you, then you need to not ruin the Police with that because you're starting to. Get your fucking jazz shit on somewhere else, and that's fine. But like, there's so many people where you go, well, now you're just doing it without the people that made you great. And and I'm wishing you had saved a couple of those songs for the last record. But I also think it's a personality type. Like, the second I could play one chord, I started a band. Like, I was like, okay, that's enough. I need to get a vest and some guys. Like, I really there are people I don't think I could. I like to contribute, but at the end of the day, I want to be the boss, or I want to be one of the bosses. I want to be, I don't want to play your song. I want to play mine. Right. Is that weird? Like, I think that just is a personality type, Yeah. My buddy Brad, who plays in the Goo Goo Dolls, is a great, I haven't heard a lot of stuff that's, I've heard some noodling stuff that's his own stuff, but he can play everything. He can play everything. And he's good at playing everything. And
you have to be able to. You have to be able to.
Yeah. And there's guys that go out on the road with these bands who are like, you don't realize, but they're covering for also the guy you love. That they're playing and they're singing and they're helping some of those. They didn't talk about that.
I wish they had gone deeper with because there are guys that tour with like Green Day and Foo Fighter, maybe not Foo Fighters, but like Green Day and Offspring, like guys who like are hidden behind the speakers, like playing, keyboards or, like guys who aren't in the band, who are actual legitimate side guys. And I feel like this movie was like really incomplete. There are people who are doing more of the hired gun stuff than they really got into, and they veered off more into people who are in a band who aren't the artist. And I feel like that wasn't really there was just like they missed so much. There's so many people who are really doing what they're talking about, and like that are like, I don't know. I felt like it was really incomplete. That was my opinion. I also was, I will say, as a guy who grew up in the 70s and a metal guy, I didn't know that Ted Nugent didn't sing Stranglehold. I didn't know that until yesterday. And I knew, because I knew Derek St. Holmes was his guitar player and played all of the hard guitar parts. But when I found out that he sang Stranglehold, I was like, first off, thank you, because it's the one song of his that I fucking love. And I hate that I love it because I can't support Ted Nugent in any way. So that sort of like, so I'm just liking Derek St. Holmes in that moment. Okay, because that song, it's an opposite strangle. It's about strangling somebody. But that song has a groove that's like
it is 1972. Like it just is that fucking time period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like certain ELO songs where you go, that is as real as a mountain. That is a thing that defines that time. But yeah, there are I was gonna say shit, I forgot. I got so lost in the 70s.
We were talking about the guy who sang the thing on Ted Nugent. The guy who sang the song, who wasn't him.
Who wasn't him?
Yeah.
Whole songs. Whole other songs. Yeah. There's a keyboard player in that Ozzy
Yeah,
band, by the way, named Bob Daisley, who's off the side of the stage most of the Ozzy tour. But he's in the band sort of, and he's the keyboard player. And so much. Oh, when this is the best though. Sometimes you're not playing at all. And when Brad joined, who was the other girl? Not Mandy Moore, but the other one that
Hillary Duff.
Hillary Duff.
Yeah.
And he joined Hillary Duff. The first night, his gear was out there. He went out there, he plugged in, blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, they were like, man, you were into it. You were like totally, you were going for it, man. You had your amp up and everything. And he goes, what? He goes, it's all taped.
Yeah.
Your stuff's all taped.
Well, that was why it worked for me to be in Miley's band for a year and a half, was because no one ever heard a thing I sang.
No, because it was all taped.
Yeah.
It was all, but she sings live.
Well, now she does. I mean, back then, and even back then, she was still an amazing singer. But they had everything in the can just in case. You know, it was kind of like it was a fielder's choice on the part of the sound man, whether what he was gonna like bring into the front of house sound or not.
It's all you have to do every once in a while is really look around when you're at a show. Like close your eyes, listen to hear what you're hearing, and then open your eyes and see if you see all of the things you hear. Because you're like, nobody else is singing. Or that's just him and the drum, and it feels thick. You know, like it's hard. And I don't look. Most people want a concert experience aren't people that spend their weekends at Guitar Center and know what's happening, so they don't care. The opposite. I saw The Weeknd last year, and he brought a band with him, and he had them sort of tucked in back, but they were on stage, and I think he wanted to look legit, and I was like, nobody here would have fucking cared, dude.
Yeah.
You sing. We all can tell you're just sing. You have a beautiful voice. Nobody needs those. That's just wasted money.
Yeah.
Nobody needs you to be legit. Like that's the one thing I do sort of like about the rap R&B world sometimes is like sometimes they go out there and they just don't have a band that they're singing.
Oh yeah. They're not even pretending.
They're not pretending.
They're not going to spend the money on they'll spend the money on the dancers, but not on the band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only time you have a band is when you go to the Grammys, so that you go, this stuff is also live. You know, where you're Bruno Mars and you play the drums, but nobody needs to see.
Well, Bruno Mars though, he's like the real deal.
He's the real deal.
Yeah. And talk about a guy who is like loyal to his crew. Those guys have been with him from like day one.
They have.
Oh yeah. Bruno Mars's got, that's like his crew.
So
it's pretty cool.
When I went to, I was in Vegas over the holiday and we saw two shows in Vegas, but one of them was Michael Jackson's One, which is the Cirque du Soleil reinterpretation of his music, told in dance story. I love my in-laws. I mean, it was very nice and expensive and sweet, and I don't know what the fuck was going on. I didn't understand a minute of it. Did not enjoy. But the guitar player from the band that he had formed when he died, when he was rehearsing with, she was in the show, and they had her play all of her guitar parts live.
Oh, Orianthi.
What's that?
Orianthi.
No, not Orianthi. Not she had already left Michael. She'd already. This was going to be a new anointed person to lead from. Yeah, because he also had the but anyway.
Right.
And this girl it was really weird because everything was all tracks and dancing and people spinning and bouncing on things, and it was the story of 4 kids that go to look for his glove. And oh boy, there were some. But she, for whatever reason, played the solos to all the records live, painted gold, like the whole thing looked like had been put together with the kind of performers that stand in front of down on Hollywood Boulevard. You know, the people that are,
oh yeah,
the statue people. she was fucking Ripper, and she had to play all those different, there was the one that was the Slash solo, and there was an Eddie Van Halen one, and she played all of them really well. And it was a weird moment of like, and here's this girl who's got all this skill, and that's what she's doing. She's playing with the Michael Jackson tour.
Cirque du Soleil.
Cirque du Soleil, yeah.
Well, that also brings up another interesting thing that wasn't covered in this movie so much, is that like, so all those people who were like rehearsing for that Michael Jackson tour had put the next 2 years of their lives on hold to join this tour. And it's like, that's going to be their income for years.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's gone. And I mean, maybe I'm sure there was like some insurance or something like that when Michael Jackson died to like pay them a little bit of money, like some kind of severance. But it's like, it's too late to get on. Like everyone else's tour is booked now. So like you're unemployed for the next however long.
Yeah. And you probably saw this going much further.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So you can't. It's like so people don't understand that like when you cancel your tour, all those people are unemployed with like no recourse, and everyone else has like filled your slot on everything that's going out on tour this year. They've already hired their band. They've already hired their dancers, all of their tech people, front of house, video,
Right.
Some people may be able to plug into another tour, but losing a gig like that when someone cancels or dies or whatever, it's like you just have no recourse.
Right. Yeah, no, there's no union. I mean, even that thing of like when Billy Joe had to go to rehab and they made that whole
Billy Joe went to rehab?
Yeah, remember he had the freak out at the iHeart Music Festival, and
I'm terrible.
They just put out a 3-record set. 3 records. They put out a 3-record set. They spent all this money. They made all these records. They were just starting the tour. They did the iHeart Music Festival, and they pulled him off stage because his time was up. So they just cut the front of house, and he went fucking crazy.
Wow.
And screamed at them and threw a guitar, and then they took him straight to rehab, and they canceled the whole tour for that fucking 3-record set.
Wow.
And that was like, because they also are managed to Goo Goo Dolls. I'd heard this via Brad, but like thousands of people were out of a job.
Yeah.
Within seconds of him, they didn't put it back on. They didn't tour that record. It was and that record was expensive, and people put the record together, and art was made, and posters were made, and all that stuff, and that happens.
Yep.
And you have no control.
It's a very difficult life to be a real sideman.
Or if you choose to work with Robert Patrick. So.
Oh my gosh.
One clip.
Was that real? That seemed like it couldn't be real, what he was saying.
Because it was so
like you can't be serious. What he was saying about the guys in Filter, especially because he left.
I also I never loved Toto, but I really liked Steve Lukather.
Oh, I loved him too.
Wasn't he funny?
I want them to make a movie.
He seemed like a guy you go, I want to sit down and talk to that guy. He's funny. So Filter wrote this song, Nice Shot. It was a hit in the
90s. Yeah.
He'd been in 9 Inch Nails.
I did. I had written this song called Hey Man, Nice Shot, and there's a glass ceiling in 9 Inch Nails. There was a glass ceiling at that time of, even if you write, you're never gonna own it. I was making $400 a month. John had called me up, who's their manager, and he said, hey, we're not seeing you that much, and we know you want some more money. We're not really sure what you're doing, but if you want to make a little bit more money, there's a pizzeria at the bottom of Ciela Drive and they're looking for drivers. Would you want to go make some money as a pizza delivery boy? I took my little song, Hey Man, Nice Shot. I've got a new manager, I've got a lawyer, and I am now in negotiation with 5 labels. What would you go with? The pizza?
Certain amount of talent or pizza guy?
Right.
What would you go with?
I mean,
I'm not a douchebag.
I can't wait to find out what he says.
I've never gotten over the fact, and nobody else has, that my brother was the Silver Terminator and is a great actor and was in The Sopranos. But it's cool because I'm also doing good.
Yeah.
I wrote, Hey Man, Nice Shot. This guy, I don't know how. It's surprising to me that he's still alive. Because I can't imagine anyone on the in his band hasn't killed him.
The power of having a great song and the fact that you're the singer changes everything. All of a sudden it goes from me being hired gun to me being the guy who has to hire a band. And I get why Trent was so heavy-handed. Now I'm in the hiring position. To this day, I sit him down and I say, listen, I'm not gonna offer you anything. You're gonna go on tour, you're gonna have a fucking good time playing music that I wrote as the drummer, as the bass player, as the guitar player.
Fuckface. You're going to go on tour, write music that I wrote. Did I tell you I had a hit song? I've mentioned it more than Alice Cooper has mentioned it in this. I wrote a song. And that song's so good that I can hire you. Yeah.
I can't with that. Because even if you think it, why would you say that?
True. You're on camera. Not only why would you say it, but like I'm telling this story to people. I'm going to say this out loud. I'm saying to people, do not tour with me. I'm insane.
You have to keep going, though, because it gets worse, if memory serves.
Yeah. Okay, so.
And by the way, just a little pre-roll on this. He left Nine Inch Nails because he wasn't getting treated. You know, Trent was basically like, dude, you're a sideman. I owe you nothing. Right. That's why he started Filter.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's the backstory of that.
He's been recreating his relationship with his brother over and over again, and now he's the big brother. And he's going to play that out on you in 200-seat clubs all over America. Okay, let's hear what he has to say. I do love the guy who was the bass player in his band. So, well, look, here.
It's almost laughable what we got paid. We were, of every band we toured with, we were the lowest paid band members, even if we were making the most in guarantees. You know, as a hired gun in a band at that level, you're not getting paid enough to sustain anything.
Why are you in Filter? You know, what are you doing down here? Like, we like to get in the muck. We like to get dirty. We play fucking, shitty clubs. We like to keep it real.
No, he likes his band to keep it real, and he likes to keep all the money for himself.
Yes. But also real is we had an hit. We had a hit. We're keeping it real. It was like one of my favorite things I ever heard was when Motley Crue spun their sort of Fall from Grace as, what we're doing is smaller arenas, man. And I was with my friend Laura, and she goes, if it's smaller, it's not an arena. It's a club.
Arena.
They're called clubs.
It's a club.
Or
an
the
arena.
smaller stadiums, or what is that? Like a baseball field? It's not going as well. It's hard to say it's not going as well, but we just want to get to, what it is? You want to get to know the fans. Well, you're going to get to know them at the place where you're just like, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. It's hard to not maintain status, right? It's hard to not be if you were in a stadium, but nobody cares. And the people that are showing up love you that much that they don't care. And the people that stop never liked you enough anyway, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we just like to get real. I just like to get real.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
not getting paid anything.
Yeah.
We're getting in the dirt.
Yeah. Oh, he's so full of shit. Like, it's just unbelievable. I shouldn't be saying that, but like, I just like the fact that he said this, what he said on camera.
Right.
And didn't call the director back immediately and be like, "Oh my God, I was just having a bad day. I can't believe I said that. Can we please take that out? I'll do the interview again. Like, whenever. Please take that out."
He said in reference to, did you ever see Some Kind of Monster, the Metallica documentary?
I never did.
It's a great moment in there. I was going to say what he said is, "Don't Mustaine me," because there's a moment in that documentary where Mustaine is all bitter about, because he was in Metallica.
Yeah, I remember.
And he's not over it, and it's not cool.
Yeah.
And he gets shitty and upset, and you're like, "Fuck you, dude." He sounded like not that great a guy, but it's that sour grapes kind of thing of like, dude,
yeah.
fuck, and you had a band. Like the fact that Megadeth did as well as it, people know your name, like. But the cool upshot of this is
The paid meet and greets, and when I say paid, like the fans are paying money to meet the band. We don't see any of that money. I didn't see any of that money. The singer keeps it all to himself.
I like taking the money home. I like just keeping it all at home. You know what I mean? Like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's a bus. Stay on the bus. You don't need a fucking hotel room.
I'd rather just sit home and not be in a band than have to deal with them for another day. I know of guys that are hired guns that have great stories, great situations. They love their jobs. That in this situation, it wasn't for me. I had that aha moment of, is this really worth it? On stage in Germany. The show starts just like any other show, and I'm running and jumping, whatever, and really just rocking out and enjoying it. And I almost felt this wave come over me, and I straightened up. And I turned to Jeff, our drummer, and I just looked at him and I go, this isn't fun anymore. Like, literally, that was the moment where I was like, I need to find my exit from this project. And I was gone from it.
Yeah.
Well, first off, a wave of poverty came over him. Have you ever felt like that? Like you just were like, nope, I'm done.
Oh,
Gotten so tired of it, or just gotten so or been on something where, I suppose it's always your band. So.
Yeah. I mean,
so
I felt like that from, very early on. Like,
really?
I don't like this. But it's a completely different thing. With those guys, it was like, we are legitimately getting treated like shit. And he couldn't live like that anymore. It's like, no, even though you, as a hired gun, you're not calling the shots, you get what you get and you don't get upset. It's like,
right.
There are times when you have to look at your bank account, look at yourself in the mirror, look at your options, and just be like, decide what you can put up with and what you cannot. And it sounds like, Filter Guy just aggressively did not respect the people who worked for him. And that
it's
is
weird.
just,
right.
I've never heard anybody speak like that about their touring musicians. Like, I don't know anybody, if they think it, they certainly wouldn't say it, but I don't even know people who would think it. It's just, it's not typical
for
weird. Someone to feel that way about people who tour and play music for a living. Like, it's just not,
right.
It's not a thing. And thank God it's not a thing. And thank God that people don't.
It's a brotherhood. Comedy is even if you don't love somebody, you're like, man, but I know what you go through and I respect you for doing it. And I know what that, when you talk about that Friday night second show or whatever it is, those things we have in common, and you're like, fucking good for you, man. I get it. You don't, but it's a thing that only we'll know and understand, and to not respect the people that,
it makes me sick.
It does turn out well for this guy,
I was
though.
gone from the band a month later.
Yeah, so we'll just start with the duel.
You got it. We're rolling on one.
The Philly cheesesteak burger on a fresh-baked bun at Carl's Jr. and Hardee's. And I'm the voice on your TV and radio if they need
Yeah,
stuff,
I'm the voice
right?
on your TV and radio.
Yep.
Fucking awesome, dude.
Phil Buckman is a delightful human being, and I met him.
Oh, you know Phil Buckman?
I do know Phil, and it's funny because I didn't. I'm such an idiot. I met
And he's
him.
also hella good look. He's it all worked out for
Oh,
him. He's good looking, and
he's awesome, and he really is like that.
Yeah.
And he's a rich motherfucker now too, because he
Holy
does
fuck,
all
man.
those
Carl's Jr..
Yeah, he's that guy
right.
who does all the. Or is it no? Jack in the Box. No, Carl's Jr.
He's Carl's Jr. Yeah, he's the one that
Okay.
that's the one where it drips on everything.
Right,
and they
right.
were almost kind of like dirty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But so American Hi-Fi, which is Stacy's band,
Yeah.
was on tour with like Everclear and Fuel
Yeah.
and all those. Oh, and the Toadies.
Yeah.
They were doing like the Everclear does this like summer tour every year. So I went and saw them in Vegas or something like that and met I knew a bunch of those guys just because we all toured together in the 90s. But I met Phil, who was playing with Fuel, and we just got to talking backstage and, about stuff, and we just got along really well. His wife was there. She was about to give birth to twins and just like the nicest people. And I was telling him about Doc McStuffins and that I write the music for that. And he was like, oh, I do a lot of voiceover. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. What a great, kind of like side gig, not appreciating at all the level that he was working at. Like that he was doing like serious voiceover work.
stuff. Well,
Like you
yeah.
make bank doing that kind of voiceover work.
Yes, but
Yeah.
just to let you know, people fucking talk about Doc McStuffins all the time now. Like it's a culture. It's like there's always there's every generation of kid has its sort of cartoon and or whatever their things that they are attached to. But I hear about Doc McStuffins all the time now. So you're right up there. It's not like
pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's amazing.
yeah, you're not riding on the backyardigans.
No.
In their and now they're long in the tooth. Yeah, you're on board. You're on board a good one.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Not
good for
gonna
him,
lie.
man. Like that's a kind of like one of those awesome stories. Like, but it turned out great for him, and
And he still tours.
right,
He still tours when he can do his voiceover stuff
right.
from anywhere.
And
like
Robert Patrick has to wake up every day and be Robert Patrick.
Oh God, that makes me sad.
And his brother, who I know, Richard Patrick, who is the Terminator, the all silver guy, right? Is a fucking gem, just a gem, just the nicest, sweetest. Like, I was telling Rick, he saw me at the airport and he yelled at me across the way, "Hey, Gray!" I didn't realize we were that kind of friends, and just a fucking just a really good guy. But yeah, that's fucked up. That's fucked up.
I still can't get over that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been talking about this for like an hour and a half.
Oh shit. Okay, we need to rein it in. Yeah, and also this one, I'd heard nothing but good things about it, and it is a really good documentary. But it is one of those ones that like it's about 1 million people, and we could have just done.
Yeah.
We could have started, and I think next time we get something like that, we'll go, look, we're just going to talk about Robert. Like we'll pick the one thing because Robert Patrick, for both of us, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Or Liberty, but I will say there are good stories in here, and there are cool people that you get to know. Steve Lukather from Toto is, and I remember, there was a period in guitar magazines where they were always trying to throw him on a list, and you're like, yeah, but he's from fucking Toto. Like I don't want to hear it, man. He's not, and life is funny how it turns out and whatever. But he played the Beat It solo.
Amazing.
And he also played it for $1,500 or whatever they paid him for the day.
So funny.
He's not
and he doesn't get any mailbox money for that.
No mailbox money for that.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
weird.
hard.
Yeah.
But then again, he's still the guy who played on Thriller.
Yes.
And he still also gets the mailbox money from Toto.
And then he plays those crazy things like, you like hear a song and you won't really pay attention to the solo until somebody points it out to you and you're like, oh, he's on the Tubes record. And there's this one solo on a Tube song that you go, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, that's just a piece of magic. It was like the guy on there that, like, the Boz Scaggs guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boz Scaggs, if you're not 100 years old, you don't know who he is, but he was a a very 70s blues guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy played a solo on his thing that like, it was a part of the tapestry of living. Like you're like, I know every note of that solo because it was ubiquitous, but also to think that up on the spot and go,
Yeah.
fuck, that was what was in his head. Right? You just don't, yeah. And nothing, $150 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
I've got a similar story about that, but from Michelle Lewis. Her dad played the horn solo on Walk on the Wild Side, which is like this incredibly iconic piece of musicianship that everybody knows. And one time Michelle was getting up for school, and they lived in New York. And her alarm clock went off, and it was playing like the top 40 radio station or whatever. And that Lou Reed song was on. And her father walked by her room and was like, "What's that?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "Is that what is that?" And she's like, "Dad, it's Lou Reed." And he was like, "I played that." And she was like, "What?" And apparently he had just been like walking by, Electric Ladyland or wherever they were recording. And, he played on everybody's records. So they pulled him into the Lou Reed session. He played that, got paid $60, left, never even knew who Lou Reed was. He was kind of like a jazz guy. And
fuck that. You can hear it now in your head. It's
yeah.
everywhere. And it's in ads all the time.
Yes.
It's like one of the most, it's such a beautiful piece of music.
Yeah.
I mean, his specific solo is like its own part of it. Like,
yeah.
Oh, it's wild. That is so wild, man.
Yeah.
Fucking
and he
dude.
had no idea until, and if he hadn't walked by Michelle's room at that moment when the alarm clock was going off,
That
he
song
never
wouldn't
would
be
have
the
been
same
any
without-
the wiser.
It wouldn't have even been that. It wouldn't have even been the same song without that.
I know.
That's amazing.
So that's the life of a
amazing.
session, man.
Okay, so what do you give it? How many?
Okay, I give this movie. Are we still on 5 tough nulls?
Yeah,
I'm
here are my new questions for this season.
Okay.
I wrote questions. Mostly these are ones if we had done it on just a band. But does this movie make you want to play music?
Sure.
Is it inspiring? Did you find it inspiring as a musician?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
There was a lot in there.
Yeah. Are you better for having seen it?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Are you worse for having seen it? No.
No.
Yeah, I don't think the other. No, these last two wouldn't work unless we were talking about just a band. Because there's people that you're rooting for and there's people that you're not rooting for. I want to go back and I want to introduce the drummer from Billy Joel to the guy who quit to join Five Finger Death Punch. And I want the guy from Five Finger Death Punch to explain to him why he wanted to be in Five Finger Death Punch and that it's okay to not be in Billy Joel. And that if Billy Joel ever calls him, he can tell him to go fuck himself.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Yes.
You bully. Yeah. Fuck you, Billy Joel.
Douchehole. Anyway, I'm going to give it 3 tough nulls.
3 tough nulls.
3.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm going to give
Because
it
I
3
feel,
tough
and
nulls.
the reason why is because I feel like it was a little incomplete. They veered off the path a little bit with some stuff that wasn't quite appropriate.
There are 3 artists in there who are worthy of just their own. The whole Ozzy thing, the whole Rudy Sarzo, Brad Gillis, that just that tour that year and that job.
Oh
what
my
that
God.
would be. Just that as a film.
I want that.
Jason Newsted kind of had his own. It was a part of a movie, which is Some Kind of Monster, which really explains that Cliff Burton thing really well. The Billy Joel thing should be in an AARP ad about how not to get old and to let resentments go. A whole thing about resentments in a documentary about resentments that could be there. And my new favorite person in the whole world is Phil Buckman, the voice. Is it Phil Buckman?
Phil Buckman.
Phil Buckman, the voice of.
He's the best. Maybe we should get him to come on and talk.
Would love
He
to have him
totally
get
would.
on. Yeah, we have.
And
to
that's
have
the
him.
other thing that we're going to do this season is we're going to have guests.
We're gonna have some
come
guests.
talk about some of
Talk
these
about-
movies.
Yeah, talk about the movies,
and
that
we're
they've
going
been
to plug them in
Yeah.
to our podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna do that because
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, so it was worth it. It was worth it.
I agree.
But there's others. We've made a list and we'll put it up. Because we want to look again at your suggestions. But so That's it. That's the first one of the second season.
Yay, we did it.
Rock out with your doc out.
I'm Kay Hanley,
I'm Greg Barrett.
and this has been
Rock out
With Your Doc Out.